Hello and welcome back to Tea Talk. It's going to be an exciting night. We have so many different topics, a lot of context. We've got Lisa Z, we've got DeBoss, we've got Jinx, and behind the curtain, we've got Phantom. Tonight, we're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill. We're going to talk about taxes. We're going to talk about chaos in the news. We're going to talk about chaos going on in Los Angeles. What is the Trump administration really trying to do? We're going to talk about Kilmar Abrego. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but most of all, we're going to give you a lot of context, a lot of information, things that's going to help you to know about what things are going on for you and where you live. So sit back and enjoy Tea Talk.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Tea Talk on the Pod, a roundtable of opinions and facts where politics are loud, news, it's sus, and the entertainment, it never stops. We have DeBoss, the pillar of substance and truth, Jinx, the voice of reason, wisdom, and a lot of sass, Lisa Z, the statistician of facts and tracks, and me, well, I'm T, the instigator, the protagonist, and I bring the heat, the heart, and the soul. Welcome to Tea Talk. Hey everyone, in this episode, I want to delve into what the taxes mean for you and for me in this big, beautiful, colossal, dumb bill. Those are my words. But before we dive into that, I want to find out what everybody's opinion is, because apparently Kilmar Abrego is back in the United States. Of course, just a few weeks ago, there was no way we're going to get him back. He's never coming back. We have no way to do that. It's just not a thing that's going to happen. But apparently he's back. Apparently he's been charged with trafficking crimes. That's another conversation to have. Where did those trumped up charges come from? And I want to get everybody's thoughts on that. So, Lisa Z, DeBoss, take it away.
Well, go ahead, the boss.
My initial thoughts is I'll be as blunt as I can. I think it's a bunch of crap, to say it lightly. I think that that there was there was a contempt order coming down that they were going to have to deal with. These charges, and I've read the indictment. The charges seem frivolous at best. The chief federal prosecutor in Tennessee, by several accounts, several reports, he resigned because he thought that the indictment that they were putting together, he didn't believe that the evidence was there to indict this man on these charges, and he resigned. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. He's been practicing there for 15 years, and he resigned just the other day when this indictment came out. So no, I don't believe anything in the indictment that says that this man is doing what they said he was going to do, and here's the reason why. When he was pulled over in Tennessee in the vehicle with 8 other, and I'm going to say undocumented because none of them had ID.
Right.
But lo and behold, they were all let go. All of them. All of them. And this wasn't this year. This was 2 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, and now after he's been deported, you have this indictment come out that just started in April of this year, and they say it's an international human trafficking ring, but there's only one person that's been indicted.
Wow.
And guess who that person is?
Kilmar Abrego.
He's the only person indicted. He's the only person indicted. Now, if you want to say you have co-conspirators, which they do in the indictment, then convince me that those people. Do you know how easy it would be to get any one of those people? Because clearly we know that they're either immigrants that you can use. How many tools do you have at your disposal to make somebody write whatever you want them to write?
Right.
I can reference his 2019 case where they did the exact same thing to get an informant to say he was a member of MS-13.
Right.
And he had been in New York and he hadn't. And a judge found them not to be credible. So what makes me think after a federal judge, a prosecutor resigned because he didn't believe that the evidence was there to charge him with this, with our current administration, that these charges hold water. They didn't have a choice but to bring the man back because they didn't want to be held in contempt of court, and that was coming. Has
Yeah,
nothing to
this
do
is
with
to cover that up. Yeah, this is the
100%
cover. It's the save face, right? Don't you think, Jinx? It's this. It's completely to save face to their base that so they can say, "Oh, we didn't bring him back because of that the Supreme Court and all that. We brought him back because he's a international sex trafficker. We had to bring him back."
Absolutely, and they can't do it. They can't do anything but that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no. But like, my question is, what are they going to do? Which one of them are going to forfeit their license? Because they could be disbarred. This is why this guy quit. This is why the prosecutor quit, right? The U.S. attorney,
Sidney Powell.
Yes. Yes, because you cannot just bring charges with no evidence. And when they get into court and they have to show their evidence, the judge is going to be pissed.
Yes.
That they wasted the court's time. The judge is going to be pissed and somebody's going to lose their license.
I don't think it's going to get that far.
They'll drop it, right?
I think ultimately they're going to drop it and it's going to fade away. It's going to be in the same place where the Haitians eating cats and dogs are. It's going to be the same place where all of the other 2-week promises are. Because to your point, these judges aren't playing with this. And you want to get fined, disbarred for bringing a frivolous indictment, right?
It's true, yeah.
It's a pretty rare.
Why has this never been mentioned until now?
Because there was nothing to mention. This is the only way. Think about this. Based on what they charged him with, they said over 100. He's trafficked over 100 times. Each one carrying a minimum sentence of 10 years. Okay? If he is who they say he is, and he was so bad that he deserved to be where he was in CCOT, why the hell spend the time and resources to bring him back when you didn't want to do it to begin with? Because you got to remember, they had to extradite him back.
Right. And they could have brought up all of this when they were standing in front of the Supreme Court. And not one of these trafficking charges that I remember were brought up.
They never said anything. No.
In the Supreme Court hearings before the Supreme Court ruled that the United States government had to facilitate, there's that word again with many meanings in law books, his return, to facilitate his return. And then after weeks and weeks going by of them just saying that it's just not possible, they can't do it, here in the dark of night and under all the craziness and noise that's going on, he's suddenly back in the United States and is charged with trafficking.
Correct.
Have to save face.
They have to save face. They want to hold him for a little while. The boss is right until the headlines fade and they can quietly let him out the back door of the jail and let him go back to his family and go through the due process of the immigration system.
This truly bears the question of, can anyone make this make sense?
No.
But I have a question. Is this not the best podcast out there? We've got Jinx, Lisa Z, we got DeBoss, we got Phantom in the background, keeping all of us upright and straight, and, well, some of us looking pretty, but I digress. Lisa, tell me what's in this big, crazy, dumb bill that's going to cost me more on my taxes and potentially all of those out there that's listening to the podcast. I want to know what the statistician says about the big, beautiful bill and our taxes. Lisa Z.
Yep. Thanks for that, T. So we've heard so much about the three things: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. So let's start with no tax on tips. That is on page 750 of the bill. So this will only include, this will be a deduction. So deduction versus credit. Credit is money back in your pocket. Deduction is money deducted from your total gross income that lowers your tax liability. Okay. So this will apply only to cash tips that you report to your employer, and your employer tracks on either a W-2 or a 1099. Now, some experts say that cash tips are that are done on a credit card are considered cash, but some say not. So we will have to see once the bill passes what the IRS actually says about that. Once they get it and they start, doing all the policy and everything. Okay. A lot of people who get cash tips, like if it really is cash, do not report that. And they already don't pay taxes on that. No taxes. However, if people start reporting their cash tips, they will only get a tax break for federal taxes. They will still have to pay Social Security, Medicare, FICA, local taxes, state taxes, all that will still come out of their tips. Mm-hmm. It's only for federal, right? So, and also that is at the end of the year. So if you get paid, like say your employer, you work at a restaurant, your employer pays you every 2 weeks, your tips are included with that. They will still withhold taxes from that money if you're W-2'd. And at the end of the year, then you'll square it up when you do your taxes, and you'll be able to deduct the tip amount from your total gross income, lowering your tax liability. So
$50,000. Yes. Out of that 50, you had 7,000 in tips. Now your taxable income is 43,000.
Correct. Yep.
But you're not receiving anything in your hand as it was sold.
No.
Correct.
No.
Okay. There you go.
No, and you're right, and I'll get to that. And it's about tax liability. And people who make 50,000 or less normally don't have that much of a tax liability.
Right.
So it's like zero. A lot of times it's zero, or it's a couple bucks. So you're not getting less than zero. If your tax liability is already zero, this is not going to help you. It's just not. And people who make that 50,000 or less, they don't really pay taxes, federal taxes anyway. At the end of the year, because they'll end up getting that back anyway, because they have zero tax liability. So this only applies to people making $160,000 a year or less. If you're single, that doubles. It's like $250,000 for people who are married. Also, it's temporary. It's only from 2025 to 2028. So it's only while Donald Trump is in office. So to DeBoss's point, so what does this mean for the average tip worker? So I did some calculations. Per the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average tip worker, such as a food server, makes about $33,000 per year. So even for single people, they will have about $5,000 in federal taxes withheld from that $33,000. And they'll end up owing at the end of the year about $2,100, in federal taxes. So they'll get the difference back in a refund. And say, 10,000 of that was tips, right? It's not going to be, but say, 10,000 of that 33,000 was tips, then that would take your tax liability down to 23,000, right? So your tax liability would be $840, right? As opposed to 2,100. Now this is good, because this means that you're going to have to see an increase, right, of $1,200. But this does not apply for credits. So if the earned income credit, child tax credit, if you have dependents, they are going to use the higher amount, the 33,000, not the 23,000, to calculate your earned income credit and child tax credit, which means you're not going to see any increase from any of the credits. It's only going to be tax liability. Like I said, people who make that much money, they already have zero tax liability. They already get most of their federal taxes back anyway. So it will help, but not as much as people think. I don't want people to walk away hearing no tax on tips and they think, oh my goodness, I can just say it's all tips. No, it doesn't work that way. It has to be documented by your employer. And it's going to be, it's definitely going to help, but it's not going to be a situation where you're going to walk away with most of your, money being untaxable. You're still going to pay Social Security. You're still going to pay all those other taxes. It's only for federal. So the Senate version of the bill that they had last year had a maximum exemption of 25,000 or 20% of your hourly wage. Just something to keep in mind because the Senate has it now and they're going to tweak their little thing, right? So the no tax on overtime, very much the same thing as the credit, except people are going to see even less from the overtime deduction. So it's not a credit. Again, it's just a deduction. Maximum income that you can have is 160,000 if you're single, 250,000 if you're married. You'll only be able to deduct your federal taxes, so you're still going to pay all the other stuff. Expires in 2029, just like the no tax on tips. So it's only while Donald Trump is in office. Again, the Senate had a 20% of your regular wages cap when they created a similar bill last year. That's just to show, just to throw out there what may be in store once the Senate gets this bill. And what does this mean for the average working class person? Well, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics, on average, most people work about 3 hours of overtime per week. So that's 160 hours per year. So if you have an hourly wage of like $20 an hour, overtime would be $35 an hour. This would mean you would get a deduction of around $5,600 off of your gross income for the purposes of federal income tax, putting about $600 back in your pocket. And that's $600 for the average worker. So it's not nothing, but I want to make sure people aren't blindsided. You're not, going to be able to just not pay taxes at all on your overtime. It's only for federal. So like I said, it's $600, right? Who doesn't want an extra $600?
Sure.
So it's not nothing. Now, the best part, right? And I saved the best for last of these three, the no tax on Social Security. Would you be surprised to hear that it's not in the bill at all?
Nope.
There is no provision in the bill for Social Security taxes. Is that surprising?
No.
So they literally did a bait and switch with this one. They literally did a bait and switch. They're telling people that no tax on Social Security is in the bill. Carolyn Levitt said it. Donald Trump has said it, right? Congressmen, senators have said it. There is what they did put in the bill is an exemption, a $4,000 additional standard deduction for seniors 65 and older. So this includes, that doesn't have anything to do with Social Security. There's a lot of people 65 and older who are still working that are going to get this benefit, right? So it's not taking care of people on a fixed income. It's not taking care of our seniors who are on Social Security and really need the help. And there's the income limits are 75,000 if you're single, 150,000 if you're married, right? The average savings is going to be around $300. And even for those people who are making 75,000 or 150, the average is going to be around $500. So, and like I said, it's not really going to help people who are on Social Security because there's all these regulations and stipulations for people on Social Security. They have to make over a certain amount, over $34,000 to even warrant having to pay taxes out of their Social Security as it is. So it was already kind of a lie when he was saying it during the campaign that there were going to be no taxes on Social Security because the average Social Security benefit is $22,000 a year. And you don't have to pay taxes unless you're getting in 34,000 or more. Do you see like the thing, right? So so like I said, it's not nothing, right? It's a $4,000 standard deduction. It's not really going to help people that really need it because they're already not paying anything. It's a deduction. It's not credit. So it's not money in your pocket. But $300 is not nothing, right? So it's like there's some positive, but it's not what they made it to be. It's not what Donald Trump made it to be on the campaign trail, and it's not what Republicans make it out to be either. Okay, so the last thing I want to tell you guys about is the repeal of direct file. So direct file was something that the Biden administration and Democrats in Congress worked together to create. It's a free tax filing website, just like TurboTax or H&R Block, where people could go and file their taxes for free and not have to pay those exorbitant prices. Now, the taxpayers paid for this. It was already created. 25 states had already started using it back in 2023. And now the Republicans put in this bill that they want to eliminate it. There's nothing wrong with it. They want to eliminate it so they can funnel money to the private sector tax preparation services to create a private one. So very similar to the voucher program, very similar to the money that they're funneling into the for-profit prison system. The Republicans in Congress got, $1.8 million in contributions to kill the direct file system. And now they have in this bill that they're going to create a task force to design a better public-private partnership between the IRS and the private sector tax preparation services to provide a for-free tax filing to replace the existing free file program and any direct e-file tax return system. Now, this is a brand new system. It's less than 2 years old. It's the taxpayers already paid for it. The IRS was managing it, but yet they want the taxpayers. They want to delete that and have the taxpayers pay yearly the private tax prep industry, H&R Block, TurboTax, for something we already had. So you can still,
Again, I say,
you are still
make
going to
it
be able
make
to go
sense.
onto the website and apply for free, but it's not going to be free anymore because now your tax dollars are paying a private company to upkeep the same website we already had.
Right. And it's not going to be a sunk cost like the IRS.
No.
You buy it,
No.
you pay for it, like you install the software on your phone and you're done.
Yeah.
This is going to be an ongoing accruing charge that you're
Every year.
And why did they do that? They did that because they're not paying. The IRS has federal employees that are already getting money.
They're already paid.
But
They're
these tax preparers were like, I would like to come to a fundraiser and support you, Mr. Trump. And he was like, I got you. So then they make this deal. We are now paying for it on that end. And now they're getting a steady stream because that's why at tax time, we get all of those ads. Come to TurboTax, come to this one, H&R Block. We guarantee you more money and you'll leave here with your refund because there's competition out there in the marketplace. So it's going to impact that too. The small guy, the little guy that isn't in on this federal contract is going to have a really, really hard time competing with getting customers now because they're like, I'm going over here for free.
And who do you think is going to get that federal contract?
Yeah.
Who do you think?
The people who paid the most money to these Republicans, the $1.8 million in contributions, 700,000 of it was during the 2024 election cycle alone. It was all Republicans, right? They didn't pay any Democrats because Democrats were the ones who created the direct file system that was causing H&R Block and TurboTax to lose money, right, in the first place. So in 2023, Senator Elizabeth Warren and Congresswoman Katie Porter sent out a letter alerting people that TurboTax and H&R Block had made a deal with Google and other search engines to give our data, our tax data, our adjusted gross income, how many dependents we claimed, the people who had used their services, TurboTax and H&R Block. They gave our data to these search engine people, these Google and Meta and all that stuff, in exchange for them suppressing the direct free file software so that people wouldn't see it. It wouldn't come up on people's search engines.
I know
so that they would be forced.
I didn't know it existed.
Yes. So that people would be forced to go to TurboTax and H&R Block and pay to file their taxes. Tell me that doesn't piss you off. 100%. That they used our data, our personal tax data that we gave them in confidence and trusted them with it so that they could suppress the direct file, free file system that taxpayers paid for with their tax dollars. And that hard-working IRS public servants, labored to create for taxpayers. And they suppressed it so that nobody could use it, so that people would be forced to pay them anyway, even though there was a free system out there, and did it with our data. They paid for that suppression with our data.
They talk about these other countries that have universal health care and socialized services, and they're like, oh, you have to pay so much taxes, and they talk about all these perceived downsides, because I have family that live in one of these countries. But oddly enough, that country scores the highest on the happiness meter, because I'm happy to give you half of my check if I know I don't have to cover a huge nut of all these expenses. If I know I don't have to worry, it's not about what you're getting, it's what you don't have to worry about losing.
Right.
I don't have to worry about losing my house because my appendix burst. I don't have to worry about losing my job because I'm out of PTO and my appendix burst, or my kid's appendix burst. I don't have to worry. There's certain things that aren't on your mind that you don't have to worry about. I mean, think about what your life would be like if your 3 biggest bills weren't a thing.
And if you didn't have to save money for your kid's college fund, because public college is free in a lot of those countries.
Right. People have their eye on the wrong, what they think is the prize.
They don't realize it.
The prize is not the money. The prize is the comfort and peace of mind that money gives you.
Right.
So you can manage your money and let somebody else do this with it, or you can choose to give your money to a country or to a source that has proven, and the data bears out, that their health outcomes are better. No, America's always like, oh, the healthcare is terrible. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
The time that you get off when you have a baby, how many daycare centers are like, yes, we have very limited slots, but we will take your 3-week-old.
Right.
Because you have to go back to work.
Right.
And your husband is going to come home and still want dinner because you can't afford a nanny. Somebody's got to keep the lights on. It's just the lifestyle revolves around the hustle. And what happens? What does your life look like when you don't have to hustle? I would happily live with less to not have that angst.
Exactly.
But I think that they don't understand that they're paying for these things. They're paying more for these things. They're paying more for these things to have health insurance, to put their kids in college, than they would if they had it taken out of their taxes a little bit at a time, out of their paycheck. I mean,
I wish I could get stuff taken out of my taxes.
Yes, if you took it out of my paycheck, and I didn't have $50,000 of student loan debt of my own, and my daughter, who's getting ready to graduate, doesn't have 40,000 of her own that she's going to be looking at this, the start of her career. It's insane. Like, and we didn't have all this worry, like you said, about what happens if I lose my job and I lose my health care. What happens if something happens to me, if I get sick, and then I'm bankrupt, I'm destitute. I lose my house. My family has to sell their house to try to keep me alive. Like, it's just insanity.
It is.
But we're convinced we've been propagandized, to use your word, Lise.
Yes.
We've been propagandized to believe, no, this is the greatest country in the world, and they're communists.
Yeah. It's, give us your tax money and we'll funnel it to private corporations who don't need it.
Right.
The tunnel for the funnel.
Yes.
The tunnel for the funnel.
Think about that. So much of our tax dollars get funneled to private contracts. So many. It's insane. Most of our federal dollars, and this is what people don't understand too. Most of our federal dollars go to federal military contractors, to the federal, the military industrial complex. We are actually paying a company in Ohio to make tanks that the military keeps saying we don't need. They've been saying for decades that we don't need this many tanks. Stop sending us tanks. We don't need tanks. And yet they keep funding this private federal contractor because it's in a district of a high up member in the Republican Party in Congress who doesn't want, those jobs lost and doesn't want that tax revenue and that money lost for his district, because then he might get voted out.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think that people need to keep in mind when people talk about Social Security and Medicare, that's why, we have so much debt. Sorry, sweetheart, but Social Security and Medicare by law cannot add to the debt. That's why it's taken out separately from your paycheck. It's Social Security and Medicare is a pension program. It has its own pot of money. It has its separate, withholding. It doesn't go into the federal tax system. It doesn't go into the federal debt.
I want to take this time to say thank you to all of our viewers and our listeners. Without you, this would not be possible. And we certainly want to grow Tea Talk to reach as many people as we possibly can. So we hope that you will subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow, download our podcast, whether it be on Podbean, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us, like us, comment, share. That helps the algorithm and the content to get out there. But Tea Talk would not be possible if it wasn't for you out there listening to us. I want to thank Lisa Z, Jinx, DeBoss, and the Wizard of Oz himself, Phantom, the behind-the-scenes guy who keeps all of this going, gives you all the content that you need and all the information that may pop up on the screen while you're watching us. We try to be as exact as we possibly can.
Okay.
I'm going to do my countdown. You'll be seeing these. So I do because it just works for me.
Go ahead. Do your thing.
Don't lean too far back. You're going too far back sometimes and you get really, really dark.
Okay.
Me or T?
You already dark.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So
You're already dark.
I'm like the background in the background if I'm getting too dark. I look like Brock's Candy with his teeth on. I don't know about
Oh my God, that was rich. I love you to death. Love DeBoss to death. That's the truth. Okay.
Now, there is still time for us to stop the big, beautiful bill from becoming law. And the way that we do that is we reach out to our representatives in Congress and in the Senate. Now, the bill is making its way through the Senate, and all signs point to the fact that they are making it worse, not better. And they will be able to pass this vote with simple majorities unless we reach out to them and put enough pressure on them to stop it, or at least try to stop the very worst parts of it. The way we do that is to call the Congressional Switchboard at 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. You just tell them where you live, and they will connect you to your representatives.
I want to say thank you to everybody. I hope everyone that has watched the kickoff for Tea Talk will be repeat offenders and keep coming back. I want to thank Lisa Z. I want to thank DeBoss. I want to thank Jinx. But most of all, I want to thank Phantom. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for Phantom. He is our tech guy, our IT guy. He is the guy. And he is the one that has made Tea Talk possible to come to you. I hope this will be a learning experience for all of us. I hope that everything that is discussed, we all take something from it. And I hope that it makes us all better people, a better individual. And I hope that we can take that betterness and spread it around to others and let them know everyone is welcome here. Again, I want to thank you for Tea Talk, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, it's me, Phantom, the IT guy.
reminding you to hit the like, share, and subscribe button below this video. And don't forget to leave your questions and comments for us down below. We'll select a few questions or comments to share and answer on our next show. Thanks again for watching, and keep an eye out for our next episode.
3, 2,